Hello students, welcome to the 13th online lecture for the subject of sociology. Dear students, we shall begin with a new chapter today. The name of the chapter is Socialization, and I'm sure you all will enjoy learning about socialization. Let us first try to understand what exactly is socialization. One fundamental fact about a newborn organism or an infant is that it is helpless at birth. It is not at all prepared for a life in society. It has to be taken care of from birth. Man is not born social. At birth, a human child possesses the potentialities of becoming human. While we try to meet the needs of an infant, he or she learns how to respond. Thus, a child becomes a man through a variety of experiences. Hence, man's behavior is learnt behavior and not instinctive. An infant is only a biological organism and is quite incapable and immature. He or she is also totally unsocialized. Slowly and gradually, an individual is transformed from a biological being into a social being. In this process, he learns the necessary rules and regulations of the society and tries to adjust himself to the conditions of his social environment. Students, this is the process of socialization. Let us see the definitions of socialization. According to Hobbes and Blank, socialization transforms the biological organism into a social being. Another definition, according to W.F. Ogburn, socialization is the process by which the individual learns to conform to the norms of the group. So, students, we must know that socialization is a lifelong social experience by which humans develop their potential and acquire culture. Socialization is a continuous process which starts at birth and continues till death, that is, from cradle to grave. At each phase in life, there are transitions to be made or crises to be overcome. It prepares an individual for the roles he has to play in his lifetime and also helps in transmission of culture from one generation to another. It is the process of socialization that helps an individual in adapting to the changing environment. So, students, from the above explanation, we can summarize the following. Number one, socialization is a process of learning various forms of behavior acceptable in a particular culture. Students, one must bear in mind the fact that development of personality is not an automatic process. Every society prescribes its own ways of giving social training to its newborn members so that they may develop their own personality. The process of socialization is conditioned by culture. The process of socialization also differs from society to society. Young children learn the roles and norms and become fully functioning members of their society. They learn the ways of their elders and also try to imitate the various social practices. So they learn the type of behavior which is acceptable in their culture. Thus, socialization connects different generations to one another. Number two, socialization is an ongoing process of continuous learning. Socialization is a process of inducting the individual into the social world. Socialization is social learning. This learning is continuous. The process of socialization is something that continues throughout our life. We begin as children, learn roles, pass through adolescence into adulthood, marry, become parents, enter middle age, grow old, etc. With each role comes new pattern of behavior that we must learn. So throughout our life we are involved in the process of socialization. Though an individual may become fully mature, he or she cannot be a perfect human adult without socialization. It is socialization which leads to personality development. Number 3, socialization is a process through which an individual gradually becomes a member of the society. Every society has its unique culture which is collectively created and lived. Socialization facilitates learning this collective way of life. An individual tries to adjust himself to his social environment. Socialization maintains social order. Individuals to conform to the norms of the group. They acquire behavior norms, habits through suggestions and imitation also. Students, let me acquaint you all with the case of Kamala and Amala to prove to you the importance of the process of socialization. Kamala and Amala were two children who were rescued from a wolf's den from a jungle near Godamuri village, district Midnapur, West Bengal on 9th October 1920. When discovered, they displayed behavior like wolf, howling, scratching, and biting people who tried to feed them. They rejected cooked food, ate raw meat, walked on all fours, had an acute sense of smell and hearing. They did not even speak. Amala died of kidney infection in 1921. Kamala was trained and hence was able to walk upright and learn to speak some words. Thus, we see and realize what humans would be like without social contact, and that socialization is extremely important in human development. Now, let us talk about the process of socialization. We have by now come to know that human behavior has to be taught and learned. This learning process, that is socialization, transforms the individual self into social self. Through socialization, we learn how to behave and become active members of social group. Our drives are guided into approved channels. Parents and other members help the child to learn the norms of the group. They reinforce the child's learning by rewards and punishments. It is because we internalize these norms that are able to decide what to do and what not to do in different social situations. The heart of the process of socialization is the emergence and gradual development of the social self. So, students, now let us see how this self emerges and develops. Everyone in a society has a consciousness of self. When a child is born, it has no consciousness of itself or of others. The idea of self begins as the child learns something of the world of sensations about him. The self develops out of the child's communicative contact with others. He learns that they are distinct beings and that he too differs in individuality. Acquaintance with his name and the use of words like I, me, myself help the process of discovering self. It is in terms of the self that personality takes shape and mind comes to function. Thus, self means self image. At birth, the child is not conscious of any of self and other relationships. These relationships the child learns through the process of socialization. A famous philosopher and psychologist at the University of Chicago, George Herbert Mead, elaborated on the process of building social self. He also, like C.H. Cooley, held the opinion that the society is the determining factor in the socialization of the individual. He also said that self is social. The individual, through interaction, becomes aware of himself. That means the individual comes to know about himself by role playing. This is because the self does not exist at birth. It emerges through communication and interaction with others. This makes humans the social beings. According to George Herbert Mead, formation of self occurs in three distinct stages. Let us examine these stages one by one. Stage 1, Imitation. George Herbert Mead said that self is not initially there at birth but arises in the process of social experience and activity. The first stage, which is the imitation stage, is also called the preparatory stage. Here, the child imitates the behavior of adults without any real understanding of it. Example, a little girl playing with a doll may suddenly hit the doll hard on the wall, or a little boy may help his parents clean the floor by pushing a broom or a stick around the room. The child just imitates adults around him without knowing their roles thoroughly. Stage 2, Play stage. At the play stage, the child has some understanding of adult behavior, but the child tends to switch roles. Example, sometimes he or she acts as a father, next, he becomes postman, then he becomes an engine driver or a police officer. At this stage, his responses are not organized at all. A child internalizes the attitudes of the others who are significant to him or her. Now, who are these significant others? These significant others are those individuals who are most important in the development of self. They are those whose opinion matters to the individual and who are in a position to influence our thinking, especially about ourselves. A significant other can be anyone such as parents, siblings, friends, or teachers. Stage 3, Game stage. As a child matures and as the self gradually develops, one internalizes the expectations of a large number of people. At this stage, role behavior becomes consistent and purposeful. The individual develops the ability to sense other people's role clearly. Mead says that at this stage the self begins to emerge. He divided the self into two dimensions. Number one, I, the active part of the self, the impulses in one's body, and awareness of one's physical self. Number two, me, societal attitudes and values that the child adopts and makes them his own. Individuals learn to behave according to the impressions of others and in different situations. They develop the ability to take the role according to the perception of others. Thus, the self is formed mainly throughout the interactions with others and also of how we understand the responses of others. So, students, we see that socialization is a process of self awareness. It is a process because of which we learn to behave according to the way we are expected to. The process of socialization goes on throughout our lifetime. However, the learning that takes place in the early years is termed as primary socialization. This is the most essential and basic type of socialization. It concentrates on the teaching of language and cognitive skills, internalization of cultural norms and values, establishment of emotional ties, and appreciation of other roles. The internalization of norms of society become a part of the personality of the individual. The human child does not have a sense of right and wrong, desirable and undesirable, moral and immoral. By trial and error, by direct and indirect observation, by experience, the child slowly learns the norms relating to right and wrong behavior. The child's learning gets reinforced by rewards and punishments or by approval and disapproval. Students, after learning about socialization and understanding the concept of socialization, the question that comes to our mind is socialization necessary? Does it really help an individual to become a person and to express himself more fully and effectively as a person? So, let us study how important is the process of socialization in the life of an individual. Number one, molds newborn into social being. Socialization converts newborn baby from a biologist being into a social being. Man is not born social. He becomes social by virtue of the process of socialization. Various cases of social isolation, like the one we studied earlier, that is Kamla and Amla, have made it clear that only socialization makes the newborn social in nature. Number two, development of personality. Socialization contributes to the development of the personality. Personality is the product of society. No human can develop his or her personality in the absence of groups. Socialization process molds and shapes the personality of an individual. Socialization also provides for the emergence and development of the self, and the individual gets a self identity because of socialization. It is socialization which prepares the child to lead an approved way of social life. Number three, inculcates discipline. Socialization is social learning. Social learning is the learning of rules of social behavior. These rules helps to control individuals and also make them behave as per group expectations. Socialization thus inculcates basic discipline by a system of rewards and punishments. Number 4, teaches roles, skills. Socialization teaches social role and their supporting attitudes through internalization. Socialization helps an individual to perform various roles in life, example, role of a parent, teacher, nurse, etc. Socialization also teaches skills by which an individual can fit into an organized way of life in society. Such skills can be taught either orally or on one can learn them through formal education. Number 5, transmits cultures. Socialization transmits the contents of culture such as ideas, beliefs, language, skills, etc. from one generation to another. This helps in the persistence and continuity of culture. Transmission of culture can be through the family, peer groups, schools, mass media, etc. Thus, we see that socialization performs various functions. Therefore, it is very important for an individual as well as for the society. Here we come to the end of today's lecture. In the next lecture, we shall talk about who socializes an individual, that is, the agencies of socialization, and we shall also learn about adult socialization and re socialization. See you in the next lecture. Thank you.